You're seeing that we're talking about a really exciting subject this morning. And really, yeah, everybody's already chuckling already because they know. Hey, why tithe? And I've been trying to be more purposeful in titling my messages the last couple of months. And initially, in the beginning of the week, I had why give. And then the Lord got a hold of me Thursday. He said, no, I want you to call it tithing for what it is, because there's a difference between giving and tithing. And I want them to understand that tithing is giving a percentage, a set amount, 10% of your gross income, and anything short of that is just giving from your surplus. Now, we're going to get in that in just a minute, okay, guys? But first, I got to just address the elephant in the room here, that everybody's already sitting there just on pins and needles. And is this your first Sunday here? I apologize that this has to be the first Sunday when the preacher's talking about money, right? But the elephant in the room, though, is that money is an uncomfortable subject to talk about, okay? I'd rather talk about sex up here than money. But money's uncomfortable for all of us, right? And rightfully so. Because I've been in those seats before, and I've been sitting there in those seats before with a dubious attitude toward the person who was asking me to give money, right? Because let's just face it, we live in a world where you don't have to search hard on the TV or the internet to see how people's good intentions where they thought they were giving to the Lord was misused by fallible men, right? And the reason why a lot of people don't give is because they don't trust the pastor or they don't trust the church, right? And if you're the first time and if that's your reason for not giving, then we'll talk about that, right? But I just want to just clear up some things before we even dive into what tithing is and why God wants us to do it. Okay, so the very first thing that I want you to realize is that I never touch the money here. They take up the offering, and right now it's in a locked bag together, and they're sitting there, and then they go count it together. 4 people sign off of it every Sunday. They hand it to Amanda, our treasurer. She goes on Tuesday morning and deposits it in the bank, and I never step touch it. Okay, so I'm not sitting here preaching a message hoping to get a pay raise or so that I can secretly slip out here, and nobody knows how much to give, and I'm just sitting there putting half of it in my pocket because I never touch it. And because no one person in this church ever touches that money by themselves. Okay? Number 2 here. I'm going to probably look you in the eye at some point today. Right? People are like, what are you talking about, man? Because people got this like little, when the preacher looks at them, that they think that he's looking like right at them and speaking right to their soul. I rarely ever do that, because a lot of times, I'm just preaching to like a mass of people I see out there. But I'm going to make eye contact with you today, and probably if you don't tithe or if you're not like 100% on board with the giving, you're going to think, he's talking about me because he knows how much I give or don't give, right? So I'm going to help make this message a lot easier on all of y'all. I also don't know who gives what to the church. Like, I don't get a report that so-and-so gives this amount and so-and-so gives this amount and blah, 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 blah. And I was purposeful in setting that up when the church got started because I never wanted to give preferential treatment to one person over another. Right? The person that gives 10 grand, I can treat just the same as the person that gives nothing because I have literally no idea who gives what. Okay? So let that be like a whew, okay? So when the preacher looks at me, it ain't because like he knows that I ain't been doing my part. You know what I'm saying? Alright? So just loosen up here a little bit, alright? Alright, now there's 2 other things that I kind of want us to keep in mind before we even get to talking about it. And relax, because I budgeted in this, talking about this in my message, so I'm not going to go like 30 minutes over or nothing like that. Don't panic. Alright? But there's 2 things I want you to understand. New Direction Church doesn't need your money. And that sounds very like almost arrogant or almost brash to say, but the church is doing fine. Like we have had, I think a lot of people, when they come in and they hear the pastor talking about finances or talking about giving, they think that the pastor decided to talk about giving because the church was in trouble, right? They saw the checking account dipping down a little bit. So they said, oh, well, the pastor's trying to drum up some funds on my guilty conscience, right? The church is doing that better today than it ever has. right? As a matter of fact, we have 3 accounts here at New Direction Church. We have a checking account, which we run all our monthly expenses through, like our base monthly expenses are around $7,000 here, okay? Ministry ain't cheap, right? But we get over that every month and we put it into savings. Now we also have a third account. Here's what's the third account for? Well, that's a church tithing account. Now it's not really scriptural that we have to do that or anything, because God says that it's scriptural that we as people tithe, but like the church, He doesn't necessarily like mandate it, right? But we want to have a kingdom mindset in New Direction Church, where it's not just about New Direction. So 10% of everything we take in goes to that account. And the goal of that account is to stay as close to zero as possible. Because we want to make sure that we're giving to ministries and other organizations that preach the news to Jesus, that can reach people that we won't ever reach. We want to be able to bless them and invest into the kingdom and not just what we're all doing here. It helps us stay, keep in mind who we're working for, right? And so all 3 of those accounts are better than we've ever done before. The church is doing great. Don't sit there and think that, oh my goodness, something that they bought land and it's in the financial. No, we're doing great. Right? And then secondly, and this might really, really come as a surprise to some people. It did to me the first time I heard it ever said, and the first time I realized it. Whew, I gotta take a water before I say that. By the way, I get nervous talking about money, because it's my biggest fear as a pastor that I know how it is to come in and be dubious toward pastors or religion or churches, because you've seen how it's went wrong. I've been that person sitting there. So my biggest fear going this week was Lord, don't let any person come in and hear me talking about money and think that that's what this church is about, okay? So I'm scared to death, and I hope that I can communicate this in a way so that you see that my goal here isn't to raise funds for New Direction Church, but my goal here is to get you to be obedient to Jesus Christ, okay? Because, again, matter of fact, I'm going to go out on the and just say something crazy. All right? If I can convince you to tithe today, and you're dubious about doing it, you're still sketchy about it or whatever, don't tithe New Direction Church. Find another gospel, Jesus-fearing thing and you tithe to them, because I would rather you be obedient to God than you withhold your money and withhold your obedience to God than us being blessed, okay? So I'm going to just clear y'all out right there by saying that. But the last thing here is God doesn't need your money. That shocked some people, and it shocked me the very first time that God ever opened up my eyes. Because when I started tithing, I started to sit here and I was doing this a few years ago, and I wrote my check out and I put it in there and I said, God, I did my part. Now you can do what you want to do. And God's like, I'm not counting on your check to do what I do. And he began to talk to me through the service. I have no idea what the preacher said that service, because all throughout the service, the Lord began to show me. He said, do you really think, Matthew, that I asked you to tithe so that I can be blessed? Do you really think that I'm the God who can speak and set oceans into motion? And can speak and make light come where there was no light, can speak things into existence? Do you think that I need you to provide for me? And for years I had given to the church thinking that somehow God's will and God's ministry was dependent on what I give or not. So if God doesn't need your money, then why on earth is He so adamant that you give? And I think that goes back down into the reason why God gives any rule in the Bible. He gives you rules to protect you, or either He gives rules to grow you and bless you. Now, what changed my mindset about giving and about giving on the 10% is when I realized that God wasn't trying to get into my pocketbook, but God was trying to grow my faith. And that's why He gives us that set 10% amount, because 10% of your gross income, like for anybody, I don't care whether you're making $1,000 a month or whether you're making $1 million a month, 10% is a lot, because it requires you to sacrifice maybe something you want, something you desire. It requires you to acknowledge who your blessings come from. Like it requires you to step out in faith and say, God, like, I believe in you, but I really believe in you because I'm doing something right now that does not make sense. Because I believe you can do more with 90% of my income, 90% of my finances than what I can do with 100% of my finances. Amen. And I'm giving my faith here because I know that your blessing can go further than my efforts. Amen. Somebody has to be preaching. So God doesn't need it. But God wants you to have it because He wants to teach you something from it. So let's start really digging in here. If you've got your Bibles, turn to Genesis chapter 14, I think. I got that line right here. I can't look at it. Yeah, Genesis chapter 14, verse 18 through 20. Now, y'all may notice that we're only like 14 chapters into the Bible, right? And this is really the first time we ever see the principle of tithing become established in someone's life and God's response to that. And a lot of people, the reasons why they say they don't tithe is because they say, well, it's from the Old Testament law. You know, like it was given to the Israelites and Jesus came and He did away with the law. But this is way before the law was ever established. Hundreds of years before the law was ever established. Jesus talks about tithing, and that was way after, or that was as the law was being fulfilled, okay? So, Genesis chapter 14, this is the very first instance where we see God putting the principle of tithing in the church and in the world and in a man's life. And it says, and Melchizedek, the king of Salem. Now, we kind of have lost the name of Melchizedek and what that means, like in the Hebrew language today. But the king of Salem literally translated means the king of peace. Now, who is the king of peace? Okay. And a priest of God Most High. Now, who is referred to as our Most High priest of God Most High? Jesus. This is Jesus. Disguised as a king. And Melchizedek, the king of Salem and a priest of God Most High, brought Abram some bread and wine. Now, let's do a little bit of backstory here before I go any further. Now, Abram is the guy who would later become Abraham, who people sit there, you know, the kids sing about, oh, Father Abraham, have any sons? Y'all ain't Christians, y'all don't get that. Is that the funnest song in church? I'm going to get Jared to do it one Sunday up here at worship, but like he is the father of the nation of Israel who would like literally carry God's name to the world, right? So he is a big dude, but this is before God changed his name to Abraham. He was Abram, right? So right before this, Abram is living out in his town and living there with his whole, he's built his dynasty, he's building his farm, he's a pretty like rich dude back in the day. He has like all these servants, his huge family, his friends, and they're living there. And what they did is they would travel around like nomadically from kind of place to place and let their herds of thousands upon thousands of sheep and cattle feed, right? So they would have to be very distant from other like successful farmers and cattlers and all that stuff, right? So what had happened was these kings were having a war with each other. And somehow during the war, his distant family member got caught up in it. And these kings, without even Abraham even knowing nothing about it, went and they somehow kidnapped all of Abraham's other family members and distant family. They kidnapped everything they owned. They took all their possessions, all their wives, all their children. And so they're taking them back with them where they live. So literally, like, and Abram hears the word of this, right? Somebody comes and he's like, look, like, there's this war going on, and all of a sudden, your distant family, like the people you are close to, like, they took them. Everything's gone. And so Abram said, not in my hood. And, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, of course. So he says, all right, let's go. Let's rally up the boys. So he gets on there, and in Greene County version, he'd be calling up his cousins, he'd be calling up his uncles and stuff, and he rallies up 318 of his family members, the fighting men in his family, right? And he says, come on, we ain't going to let this happen. We might die trying, but they're going to have to do it over our dead bodies. So what they do is they go out there and they say, we're going to confront them and we're going to see if we can get them back. Not only did they get them back, they defeated them and they got back everything that they had captured, right? So they're coming back now joyous, happy, tickled because they've had this great victory that they did not deserve, that they could not have done in their own power because they were probably outnumbered 10-1. Like they had done something that without God being on them, they would not have been able to do. Right? So they're coming back not only with everything they've saved, but everything they've gotten blessed with through defeating these evil kings. And so they're coming back, and Jesus, disguised as Melchizedek, greets him there. And he says, Melchizedek blessed Abram with this blessing. It says, blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth. And blessed be God Most High, who has defeated your enemies for you. And then Abram gave Melchizedek a tenth of all the goods he had recovered. That's where we get 10% from. That's where it was established. Now, I want y'all to notice something. Let's just leave this right up here. Now, see, a lot of times we think that, and rightfully so, that we're blessed because we tithe. And that's scriptural, and that's true. Malachi 3:10 says that if you give to God, and if you tithe, and if you're obedient in that principle, He will open up the storehouses of blessing on your life. Like, you will be blessed if you tithe. But I want you to see another principle here because it establishes the heart behind why we give. That Abram was blessed before he gave. God was with him in this battle before he ever gave him one penny. Not only that, he meets him out there and he says, you're blessed. And he puts the blessing on his life. And that's what spurred Abram to give. The heart behind tithing is found right here. Because we're blessed, we tithe. Because we're blessed, we tithe. Because when we give back a tenth of all that we're given, we're saying, God, I know you're the one that gave me this in the first place. And God, I'm thankful for you giving me this in the first place. And without you, without your blessing, and without your I wouldn't have this to give. So here's a tenth, just as an offering that I'm giving to you out of appreciation and gratitude and acknowledgement that you are the hand that has been feeding me my whole life, and that you will always be the hand that's providing me. Here, I'm giving you a tenth because I want to, Lord. That's how we can give joyfully. That's how we can give with peace in our hearts. And then number two here, this is another thing is what happened here, is that God used tithing to be a measuring tool for Abram's character. Like, so many people can kind of fake their way through faith. And even I've been caught myself doing it from time to time. You kind of live your life and you kind of say, yeah, I got faith for that. Yeah, I appreciate God for that. I got thanks for God for that. But you know what? When you start writing a 10% check of everything you earn, you're really putting your trust where your faith is. And God can see that, yeah, He really does have faith in me. He really does have appreciation for me. Because He's literally putting His money where He says His faith is. And you see, God saw that in Abram, and God said, yeah, he's going to be the man that I'm going to put a greater blessing on. He's going to be the man that I'm going to put my name on and build my nation around, because I can trust him. Because he's not just living for Abram, he's living for me. And then next what happens is that, and this is where you really start to understand what tithing is all about and how it's different from giving. I was working years ago in EMS. For those of y'all that are new, I used to be a paramedic before I was a pastor. And we had this thing, it was horrible. Oh my goodness, it was horrible. Like where if we were in this district and the other district got called over the call, we would have to go like sit halfway between the two districts, just beside the road with the ambulance, until the other truck pulled up. But we did that so like we could, like if there was a call in the other district, we wouldn't have to go as far, right? It made sense, it was good, but it stunk as being a paramedic. Because you just had to sit beside the road for 2 hours when there was nothing to do. So we were sitting there one day, me and my partner at the time, and she was a fairly new believer. And she said, well, Matthew, what did you think about tithing? We were just talking. She knew that I was in the ministry and stuff. We're headed down the road at the time. She said, what do you think about tithing? Do you believe in it? I said, yeah, of course I do. And she's like, well, what do you think, if you're like us, and you only make $30,000 a year, I was like, oh yeah, you should do it. You're blessed. You wouldn't have that without God or something. She's like, now what do you do, if you make $100 a year, and you're just dirt poor, you don't have it to give. I was like, oh yeah, I think God gives you a pass on that, or whatever. And immediately, you talk about the Holy Spirit smacking you upside your face. Like it was like God grabbed me by the throat and he said, that is not what I said. And immediately, I'm like sweating, my hands were sweating, I'm thinking, what did I just say? And he said, Matthew, I got your attention because you're saying something that's completely wrong and completely out of the principle about why I asked you to tithe. And if you're careful, then you're going to cause her to miss the biggest blessing which I'm trying to give her. Because you don't tithe out of your surplus, you give out of your surplus. You tithe out of your faith. And through that tithing, through that faith building, I build your faith in that. Like God can be God Most High, and God can do the biggest blessing in your life when you give and you don't have it to give. Now, this is scriptural. So, Mark chapter 12, because I don't want y'all to think I just made this stuff up. Okay? Mark chapter 12, verse 41. And this is Jesus talking about name stuff. This is as Jesus sat down near a collection box in the temple, which kind of like a church at that day. And what happened back then is they had a box, and as you came in to worship or pray, you just put your tithes in. It says Jesus sat down near the collection box in the temple and watched as the crowds dropped in their money. And many rich people put in large amounts. So they're scratching checks off. Man, just dropping in 50 G's and all this stuff. And this is what happened. It says, verse 42. It says, then a poor widow came and dropped in 2 small coins. As a matter of fact, they kind of are equivalent to 2 pennies. But basically, nobody even knows if she did it or not. You know what I'm saying? The preacher wouldn't be able to look at the account that day and say, Miss Bessie didn't give her 2 cents today, because nobody would miss it. This is what Jesus said about it. Preacher wouldn't miss it, but Jesus saw it. And Jesus called his disciples to him and said, I tell you the truth. This poor widow has given more than all the others who were making contributions. For they gave only a tiny part of their surplus. But she, poor as she is, has given everything she had to live on. You see, I think that lady was blessed and she didn't know. You know why that lady was blessed? Because we're talking about her 2,000 years after she did this. I don't think she went home and went hungry that day. Because I got all the crowd and all the big checks that were getting dropped in. Jesus offered 2 pennies to go in. I got all the crowd and all the things that are going in. Jesus sees your faith. I don't care how small it is or how little you have. Jesus sees obedience more than he sees dollar signs.
Come on. Amen.
And you know, when God sees obedience, when God sees that when you're giving, when you don't know if you have it to give or not, then God can do something through your faith. When faith meets obedience, that equals a miracle, right? Need a sermon with you. Faith plus obedience equals God's supernatural touch. That's when God can step in and God can do the impossible. That's when you step out into something that you can't do on your own. That's when you let God have something only He can do on His own. Amen? And that's the principle of tithing, and that's why tithing is different than giving. Because it's easy for me, if I've got paid $500 this week, it might be easy for me to say, I've got an extra $5 to put in there because I'm not going to miss it. But when you put it in there, and you know you're going to miss it, and you know you don't have it to give, and you know that it's stretching your faith for all it's worth, that's when you can step out of your reliance and you can step into His reliance. And that's when He can take your obedience and He can give you and He can bless you like He wants to. That's why He wanted you to give, and that's why He wanted to set it up, so that He can grow your faith in your obedience. So that He can grow you. And so many people never experience God's supernatural blessing because they never step out in supernatural faith.
Amen.
They don't give because it don't make sense to them. They don't pray for healing because it don't make sense to them. Let me tell you something. Go. Step out on the water, because when Peter stepped out on the boat, guess what? He didn't drown. God was with them. And so many people are desperately needing God to be a hero in their life. But we never give them an opportunity to be a hero. See, so many people live their Christian faith and their Christian walk like this. You know? And not only with money, guys, just with anything in life. Like, I'll give you, God, what I got because I'm okay with giving it to you, and I know I've got myself as a backup plan and a safety net. I know I've got a plan in case you don't come through. But see, when you give and you don't have it, when you do anything and you don't have it, when you do like this and you don't have a safety net, that's when you have faith. And that's when God can do supernatural things. And I'm telling you, I can look back now on times in my life when God's came through in giving, and it's built my faith for bigger things. It's built my faith for better things. God's not trying to get in your pocketbook. He's trying to get in your heart. Understand that. Everything in this Word is to give you something and not take away from something. Because God loves you. And He always has, and He always will. He loves you because you're in here this morning and you heard me say those words. I don't know if you're here on purpose or by accident or because somebody drugged you here. Well, guess what? He cared enough to get you here so you can hear me say that He loves you. And He wants what's best for you, even when it doesn't seem like it. So they're going to come out here and they're going to close us out. The altar's going to be open. And there's a lot of things going on in people's lives that don't make sense right now and that we don't have answers for. But you know what? He's got an answer for. I've had like 3 people ask me questions this week in matters of faith that I didn't have the answer for. As much as I wanted to be able to sit there and say, yeah, this is why what happened, this is why what happened. I'm only a person and I don't have those answers for it. Well, God does have answers for it. You can meet Him right here. And He'll talk to you and He'll meet you. so many of us live our lives in control. You know? And we've got God there as a safety net in case our plans don't work out. There's no really way to live a life of faith. Maybe it's time you quit letting God be your safety net and God be the only thing you look to. Let your plan be your safety net. God loves you. Don't forget it. Look, if you're sitting here and you're like, I don't want to come to church again, I hear talking about money because you don't trust yet. It's okay. You won't have to hear me preach this for another year. That's my promise. But you will hear me say that God loves you. And He does every single thing in here to protect you and to look after you as your little boys and little girls. He loves you. Don't forget it. We'll see you next Sunday.